I think people tell themselves stories, and this sort of comes back to your worldview that you just mentioned about.
We always tease each other. He was, after I gave birth, he was like, oh my gosh, if I lost you and I, went to the park with our 3 kids, I mean, think of the ladies I can. Like, this is a horrible thing to say.
Ryan Reynolds' move to initiate divorce proceedings against Blake Lively took everyone by surprise, sending shockwaves across a Hollywood already unsettled by controversies tied to the It Ends With Us movie adaptation. Before this development, the public's attention had mainly focused on the friction between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, her co-star and collaborator on the project. Lively had accused Baldoni of marginalizing her during production, pushing her into creative choices she did not endorse, and placing blame on her for comedic and stylistic elements that veered away from the novel's more earnest themes. However, in a sudden turn of events, new evidence has surfaced that may indicate that many of Lively's statements were inflated or even fabricated to shift the blame onto Baldoni. Now, the dispute has gone far beyond artistic differences. Ryan Reynolds, who once stood by his wife publicly, has allegedly taken the drastic step of filing for divorce after learning the extent of what may have been a calculated series of false claims against Baldoni. Once upon a time, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively were seen as an exemplary Hollywood couple. Their light-hearted exchanges on social media and frequent appearances at award shows and premieres won them admirers worldwide. In interviews, they spoke of finding balance between their careers and their genuine bond, which seemed to be based on shared humor and affection. Until recently, few could have imagined they might separate in such a turbulent environment, but rumors began to swirl when people started to question the validity of Lively's allegations against Baldoni. The initial hint of discord emerged when Lively's extensive lawsuit against Baldoni unexpectedly shifted direction. She had maintained that Baldoni ignored her feedback, choosing comedic riffs and outlandish costumes that clashed with the novel's serious underpinnings in It Ends With Us. Lively further accused him of maneuvering behind the scenes to erode her creative input, effectively sidelining her influence. In response, Baldoni provided his own counter-arguments, revealing emails and messages that suggested Lively had been enthusiastic about comedic scenes and actually in favor of certain wardrobe choices. The dispute grew more heated when Baldoni claimed that some of Lively's so-called proof had been doctored.
We always tease each other. He was, after I gave birth, he was like, oh my gosh, if I lost you and I, went to the park with our 3 kids, I mean, think of the ladies I can. Like, this is a horrible thing to say. And he's like, I mean, I've got a long list. And I was like, oh, really? Because I just have one on my list.
Oh.
I don't have anyone on my list.
And then it wasn't funny anymore.
No, it's so much more of a burn. He's like, wait, who? And I was like,
Tell me, he's guessing.
Think of someone, think of someone. Bob Newhart, I don't know.
Hey, Blake. It is 2 in the morning. Hopefully this does not wake you up. Whew. Wow, there's so much I want to say to you, and I hope that we can FaceTime or see each other in person soon and get to talk more. But I'm just going to send you a few thoughts, and hopefully it's not going to be more than a few minutes. But that I don't have the best track record. I don't think either one of us have the best track record for our voice memos. I want to start with an apology. Man, reading the second part of your message, my heart sank, and I'm really...
A startling accusation that initially seemed implausible to her admirers. After all, how likely was it that a celebrated actress who advocates for women's empowerment would resort to falsifying evidence? What truly altered the public conversation was the emergence of new digital files, reportedly backed by numerous individuals involved in the production. Seemingly overnight, Baldoni's account gained credibility. The new information suggested Lively had been fully on board with establishing a comedic slant and had even proposed comedic sequences. Additional materials appeared to indicate that she reversed her stance only after reading online comments from novel fans who believed the film was drifting from the original's emotional depth. Rather than admit her previous support for the comedic route, these records showed Lively allegedly concocting a narrative that cast Baldoni as the sole architect of the ill-advised comedic pivot. While not everyone was instantly persuaded, the new information did raise serious doubts about the honesty of Lively's original claims. During these tumultuous weeks, Ryan Reynolds remained largely in the background. Famous for his comedic roles and his entrepreneurial endeavors, he had no direct involvement in producing It Ends With Us. Initially, he conveyed discreet support for his wife, offering brief remarks that he had faith in her judgment and character. Rumors circulated that he occasionally dropped by the set or sat in on meetings, but never in any official role. Even so, given his own fame and his closeness to Lively, he found himself unable to avoid the cloud of speculation. Reporters pored over his subtle facial reactions at public events and took note of his limited mentions of his wife's clash with Baldoni on social media. Then came the real shock. In the midst of Baldoni's legal counteractions, inside sources suggested Reynolds had begun to question where he stood privately. Some accounts stated he had become privy to concrete evidence contradicting Lively's version of the events. Others hinted that a direct conversation with Baldoni had opened his eyes to aspects he hadn't previously known. Quickly, chatter spread that Reynolds was grappling with a moral and emotional dilemma. On one side, loyalty to his spouse, and on the other, the possibility that she had engineered a damaging smear campaign. Multiple insiders reported that Reynolds holds strong principles regarding honesty, particularly in professional relationships, and could not reconcile the thought of someone suffering reputational harm because of deceit. Before long, rumors reached gossip outlets that Reynolds had vacated their shared home. For several weeks, both Reynolds and Lively said nothing to confirm or deny these reports, though paparazzi photos hinted that Reynolds was staying elsewhere. He was occasionally seen in the company of close friends, and seldom if ever with Lively. Their usual playful social media interactions all but stopped. Online forums lit up with debates. Some believed Lively was simply reacting to being overshadowed and misunderstood.
It's a bit of a tough adjustment in our house, but it's good. I mean, I have two other daughters, so my oldest is very into the baby, but my middle child, not so much. But we're thinking of keeping her.
Does she like play with her? What does she think?
Well, she sort of like pretends to play with her. So like in the beginning, our oldest is like loving on her, and she's like very maternal, and then our middle daughter is just keeps away from her.
I for sure fell short, and you worked really hard on that, and the way you framed it, and how that made you feel. I just want to say thank you for sharing that with me. That takes a lot of trust and vulnerability, and I feel really grateful that you feel safe enough to tell me that that's how you feel and share that with me. And I'm really sorry. I f***ed up. That is a fail on my part. One thing you should know about me is I will admit and apologize when I fail. I am far from perfect. I am a very flawed man, as my wife will attest. And and I'm going to f*** up. I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm going to put my foot in my mouth. I'm going to piss you off, probably, but I will always apologize.
While others declared the new evidence proved she had been deeply involved in forming and then rejecting the comedic approach. Virtually no one foresaw Reynolds actually initiating divorce proceedings, least of all while Lively's legal standoff with Baldoni was ongoing. Yet court documents that found their way into the hands of select journalists cited an irreparable fracture in the marriage, allegedly stemming from the revelations around the It Ends With Us fiasco. Those who gained access to the filing noted that Reynolds cited irreconcilable differences, purportedly tied to evidence that Lively might have manipulated behind-the-scenes details to tarnish Baldoni's name. While the legal filing stopped short of elaborating on fabricated evidence, legal experts surmised that Lively's shaky credibility and the notion that she tampered with important documents likely weighed on Reynolds' decision. His public image has always highlighted genuineness and comedic charm, which he might feel were betrayed in this whole affair. News of the divorce triggered an onslaught of reactions. Social networks exploded with queries. Was Reynolds truly at the end of his tolerance? Had he seen enough proof to conclude Lively had orchestrated these claims, making the marriage unrecoverable? Or was their relationship already under strain for other reasons, with the Baldoni controversy acting as the final nail in the coffin? Friends within their circle offered inconsistent stories. Some portrayed Reynolds as deeply torn up, while others said he became decisively sure once faced with the evidence that Lively had intentionally misled him and others. Thus far, Lively's camp has said very little about the divorce, issuing only a succinct statement that she wants to settle personal affairs away from the public eye. In industry circles, people are speculating on the broader fallout for both parties. Reynolds and Lively have individually cultivated strong professional identities. He's known for comedic style and entrepreneurial pursuits, and she has built a profile of glamour and relatability. Their marriage had long been a favorite topic for talk shows and red carpet reporters. If they proceed with a divorce, some insiders suggest Lively's career could take a hit, given that these controversies have overshadowed her involvement in It Ends With Us. Others say Reynolds could face backlash for how swiftly he detached from his spouse following the scandal. Image is everything in show business, and some fans may question whether he showed enough loyalty when she was under immense stress. Yet whispers suggest Reynolds felt he had to uphold certain moral boundaries, unwilling to condone potential dishonesty when it might endanger someone else's livelihood. At the center of the entire saga is Justin Baldoni, who is now caught in a personal and legal quagmire he likely never anticipated.
I was testing for a show that ended up actually getting picked up and doing very well, and I was one of 2 people maybe, and then I get a call from my managers and my agent. They were both on the line, which means it's something serious.
Right.
Either you got the job or there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And they said, so you were the choice, but the network said that your eyebrows would be too distracting.
Oh, what?
Oh no.
And then they went like, so what can we do about your eyebrows?
And find my way back to center. That is one thing I can assure you of. And I'm sorry I made you feel that way. That must have felt terrible. And I will for sure do better. That was not my best weekend, and I should have given it more time. And damn right, you got great friends if that's how you felt and they knew that. And we should all have friends like that, aside from the fact that they're 2 of the most creative people on the planet. The 3 of you guys together is unbelievable. Talk about energy and just a force, all 3 of you. But I just wanted you to know that I didn't need that, because it's really good and it's going to make the movie sing like you said, and I'm excited to go through the whole movie with you. I'm just excited to spend time with you. I'm excited to be in your sphere and your presence, and for us to share creative juices together, although that sounds terrible. I think you and I have been trying to build a relationship, which I think we've done successfully. I mean, here we are.
Initially, the conflict revolved around creative disagreements, 2 influential players clashing over how to adapt a beloved novel. Over time, it grew to encompass allegations of intimidation, smear tactics, and possibly forged evidence. And now, it has bled into the personal domain, affecting a marriage that once seemed rock solid. Baldoni has remarked publicly that it troubles him to see a project cause such private turmoil, yet he also insists that defending his name is non-negotiable. Insiders say he continues to stand by his accusation that Lively tampered with some of the evidence she presented. From his perspective, Reynolds' divorce filing only amplifies the severity of this fracture. Observers in the media world draw parallels to other high-profile splits triggered by major scandals. Many speculate that Reynolds may be looking to shield himself and his various ventures from the potential fallout of a prolonged legal entanglement. Over the years, he's invested in multiple areas, from film production to international beverage brands. Tying his name to accusations of falsified evidence could jeopardize valuable partnerships. By severing ties, he may be trying to sidestep reputational harm. Still, ending a marriage in front of a global audience is no small thing. People close to him suggest he is deeply wounded but firmly resolved. Blake Lively, meanwhile, finds herself in an increasingly challenging position. With the lawsuit against Baldoni still unresolved, she now faces an impending divorce that many interpret as a sign of her culpability. Lively spent years building a public persona centered on wit, style, and her dedication to family. If she fails to disprove the claims that she exaggerated or fabricated evidence against Baldoni, her image will likely face serious damage. Some of her fans continue to stand by her, claiming the newly revealed materials have been misconstrued or taken out of context. They suggest any inconsistencies could come from on-set confusion, rather than intentional wrongdoing. But Reynolds' decision to walk away makes it harder for her supporters to uphold that narrative, and even her most ardent admirers may start to question the sincerity of her initial accusations. An additional complication is Disney's involvement. The studio apparently aligned with Baldoni early on, spurring rumors they might be providing him with financial support or legal resources to challenge Lively's claims. Given Disney's clout, this endorsement holds real weight, and there's talk of potential future partnerships with Baldoni.
I'm honored, and I'm also more honored that because, what we're talking about is so important and so meaningful that we're able to have this much anticipation, and so many people want to go see it and are talking about it. Like, that's what I'm grateful for.
And you had a key part in bringing it to the big screen. How did this all come to be?
Well, in 2019, I read the book. I was sent the book by my book agent and friend at the time, and I was looking for films that could inspire, that were commercially viable, but also could really like reach in and touch somebody's heart.
And I'm excited to have a creative partner in that with you. And it's just really exciting. There's so much more to say. There's so much I want to say. And there's one thing that I do need to say, which is I am so sorry you have been through what you've been through with these other filmmakers and producers or whoever the people were that you worked with. It just pissed me off. Those that I'm just still kind of blown away that this is the industry that we're in and that you've experienced that as a woman. And I know I don't need to say it, but that's not at all going to be or will be, and hopefully it's not been the experience with me. There's nothing more exciting to me like that I get to work with Blake Lively and have her, all of her. I mean, that's what I want. And so there's been no hesitancy with me sending you the final draft file. I am totally fine with that. The only reason I didn't send it today was because I was trying to implement and add your notes into my working draft, which is already like I'm all over that draft right now. So there's a whole bunch of new stars that are going to be collated pages, and I just haven't had a chance to send it to you.
Whose heartfelt storytelling style meshes nicely with Disney's family-friendly reputation. If it emerges that Lively indeed invented aspects of her accusation, Disney's decision to back Baldoni becomes both strategic and ethically justified. However, if concrete proof validating Lively's viewpoint surfaces, Disney could face criticism for jumping to conclusions prematurely. One of the biggest unknowns is whether revelations that Lively's charges against Baldoni were fabricated, as many headlines claim, served as the precise tipping point for Reynolds to seek a divorce. Legal experts suggest that Reynolds' team would have thoroughly reviewed the details before filing, weighing the impact not only on his public image, but also on any financial or family matters that might come into play. A divorce in the limelight can become exponentially more complex, especially when one spouse faces accusations involving defamation or tampering with evidence. Reynolds' choice to proceed so definitively suggests he may be striving to keep his personal and professional affairs separate from the unresolved legal chaos surrounding his wife. Meanwhile, fans of It Ends With Us, the novel at the center of this entire meltdown, are left wondering if the film adaptation will ever materialize. Reports indicate that production has paused until the legal disputes are resolved. The author of the source material has so far remained silent, though some people predict a statement might come once the furor settles. It's worth noting the irony. The novel delves into themes of emotional intensity, personal growth, and healing. Yet the film adaptation has been engulfed in allegations of manipulation, explosive headlines, and the possible dissolution of a once-adored Hollywood marriage. This situation highlights how quickly a creative undertaking can derail when clashing visions and personal motives meet. Many suspect that Reynolds' divorce petition is not the final dramatic development. Lively and her legal counsel may escalate the matter, challenging the portrayal of her claims as fraudulent. If she manages to present new evidence supporting her original statements, the public could shift its sympathy in her favor. In that scenario, the rationale behind Reynolds' actions might be put under scrutiny. Did he abandon her prematurely? On the other hand, if Lively cannot produce material that contradicts the growing belief that she inflated her accusations, the film community may come to see her as an example of the peril in disavowing a creative decision once public backlash sets in.
A lot of it's my real life clothes or my husband's clothes or my girlfriend Gigi's clothes. I was borrowing some.
Wait, that's kind of amazing. So you have something of Gigi's in the movie.
Yeah, it's like a wedding, like something old, something borrowed, something blue, something new.
Wait, which
except
one?
It's just,
Now I want to think of the scene.
Oh, I'm wearing her stuff all over it.
Oh, really?
And tons of like Bodhi, which is with the suit now that I'm wearing is Bodhi. It was meant for my husband, but I borrowed it.
His suit?
It was meant for him to wear, but it's so pretty. Look at it. You guys are not getting it in the shot.
Talking like this, me into my phone at 2 a.m, but largely via text and voice note. And I will be honest with you, that is not my biggest strength. I love being with people and being in somebody's space and being face to face, and I feel like that's where I excel, and definitely fallen short at times in our text and voice note exchanges, because there's so much to communicate and there's so much happening. And all that to say, I'm just really looking forward to spending time together. And I think that's going to really go a long way for our chemistry, which I believe is there and has been there from the start. So I was so damn excited when you wanted to do this film. I felt it in the room when we met, and yeah, I think it does come from the both of us being hardworking and having a vision and not settling.
Adding another layer is the potential reaction of their mutual friends, various actors, directors, and long-standing confidants. Some celebrities appear to be quietly unfollowing Lively on social media, a modern-day indication of changed loyalties. Others have posted ambiguous messages that fans interpret as hints about the matter. Reynolds himself has chosen to stay silent online, opting not to publicly discuss his decision to divorce. People close to him say his focus is on his children and his business responsibilities, declining to turn the breakup into more fodder for headlines. Meanwhile, Lively, renowned for her sense of fashion and quick-witted digital presence, has retreated from public view, likely on the advice of her attorneys. Going forward, the prospects for both Lively and Reynolds hinge on how their respective legal and personal sagas play out. Should Lively and Baldoni negotiate a settlement, the details might remain confidential, leaving many guessing about the true moral or factual landscape. If no agreement is reached and the case goes to trial, further disclosures could overshadow the divorce itself, or alternatively, weigh heavily on it. For Reynolds, a clear path forward may involve convincing the public he acted honorably by severing ties with what he perceives as significant deceit. Though many fans will likely side with him for choosing honesty over loyalty in a murky situation, some might criticize him for stepping away when his partner needed support. Regardless, there will be continuous media scrutiny. Time will tell if Lively can revive her reputation and loyalty among fans by offering a credible explanation for the contradictory evidence that has surfaced. Likewise, it's uncertain how Reynolds will recalibrate his public persona post-separation, particularly if more information comes to light that casts doubt on his swift decision. This confluence of personal tragedy and professional upheaval underscores that, in Hollywood, the drive to protect one's image can sometimes bring down even the brightest stars in an instant. In this unfortunate case, it has fractured a high-profile marriage, a bitter outcome that no one in their wide fan base could have anticipated.